Who loves Memphis barbecue and all things Memphis? Well, I do. And so does Suzanne White. I'm talking with my friend today, Suzanne. She covers the Memphis, Tennessee area. And if you know anything about Memphis, Tennessee, they have really good barbecue and lots of fun things to do. So, hello, Suzanne. How are you today?
I'm great. Glad to be here and talk with you and share about all great things Memphis.
Yes, please. So, if you will, just tell us who you are. Tell us just a little bit, how did you get into real estate, kind of about your real estate journey, and then tell us about, your family, anything you want.
Great. So sometimes people are surprised to learn that we did not own a home growing up. That was just not something that we did. I'm a Dallas, Texas transplant, graduated from TCU, go Horned Frogs. Moved to Memphis in 2000 and have been here since. So getting into real estate my background is I was a staff accountant and I had a friend when I moved to Memphis that was a real estate agent. And I thought, what's a real estate agent? I was like,
Right.
that sounds like something fun to do. So did the weekend classes, got my license. That was in 2004. Worked still full time as an accountant for 3 years at ServiceMaster, which is a big company here in the Memphis area,
Mhm.
and went full time in real estate in 2007. When the market crashed, I decided to go full time. So that was fun, but still here on the other side.
That is amazing. So, over 20 years in real estate. Wow.
Yeah.
And so what about, so you moved from Texas, anything about your family, you guys didn't own or your family didn't own a home. It's funny because now that you say that, yeah, my parents did not buy their first home until I was later in maybe high school. I don't even remember, but yeah, that's a really good point. But yeah, so tell us, about, your family here in Memphis, or do you have family in Memphis or what?
We do still have a small amount of family down in Dallas, but in Memphis, I have three daughters. One of them's in Florida, but the other two are here. Have five total grandsons. So the irony that I have girls and then have boys for grandsons, but love them. Three of them live here in the Memphis area, so get to hang out with them. Uh,
Awesome.
you know, we. I was telling my husband the other day, he's from Memphis. So when we were dating long distance, when I would come to Memphis, one of the things that he always did was kind of drive me around the town. And I was reflecting back on that, thinking that was probably what really sparked my love for the city and just the curiosity of finding out, like, what is this Memphis town that I'm moving to? Because Dallas is great, but it's a lot of concrete and glass. So
Mhm.
I realize there's history there, but also a lot of concrete and glass. So when I moved to Memphis, I was just enamored with the trees and the flowers and just, it's just different landscaping that we have here. Very much a historical town. Even some of our homes that are still from the 1900s are just fascinating to find the history of who might have owned that home. So I just love always driving around our city and just discovering more and more things about the historical aspects of our city, while of course we still continue to have new growth and new businesses come in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I mentioned to you before our call that my first job out of college was in Memphis downtown. So of course, within walking distance to Beale Street. I mean, I'm 22 years old. Imagine how much fun that was to see coming from Indiana,
Yes.
all the tourists that come there because you have tons of tourism. You have festivals like I remember Memphis in May. Of course, Memphis is one of the places, or Tennessee, known for barbecue. And it's funny because Memphis is so different, in my opinion, from Nashville. My husband's father lives in Nashville. When you ask me about Nashville, I think of like, country music, a party town, like because I feel like that's it's turned into whatever what's the street name where it's just bridal parties and bars and everything. And Memphis just has a little
Broadway.
bit of that. Yeah, yeah. Memphis has a little bit of that, but there's so much more in Memphis. So, if someone doesn't really know about Memphis, tell us what are some fun things to do, as a tourist, or even, what are people moving to Memphis for example?
Yes, great question. And I'll go back a little bit. We did just get back from Nashville. So the way that you described it, where it is very much a party town, the Bachelorette Party of America, probably we saw lots of that. We went to see a Savannah Banana game. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, fun.
So Memphis, yeah, Memphis, we have a tendency to describe it as it's the biggest, smallest town
Mm.
because we've got that whole 7 degrees of separation that everybody knows a story about somebody or is connected to somebody, even though we're a major metropolitan. And a Yelp review just came out, the latest, and Memphis was ranked fourth for the best barbecue in the nation, and Nashville was 10th. So yeah, Memphis was a little bit higher up there. And ironically, Austin was first, which I understand being a Texas transplant. We just had the
Mm.
beef barbecue there versus pork in Memphis.
Sure,
So one
sure.
thing that a lot of people don't know about Memphis is we actually have a park that I think they say square footage wise, landmass is larger than Central Park. And so it's an
Oh.
area right in the middle of town called Shelby Farms, which Shelby is what the name's of one of our counties here. And it's just beautiful. So I've taken up running in the last couple of years. And if we didn't have these trails, I probably wouldn't be a runner because it gets hot and I don't want to
Mm.
run in the street. But there's lakes there, a children's playground, of course, and then all these trails that kind of spur off of one another. And although I can't say they go all through the town, they have connected them pretty well throughout the city so that then you can just go and run all throughout the town on these trails that are designed for bikes or runners, walkers. They'll have little ponds or levees or anything like that. So lots of wildlife that you get to encounter while you're out on the trails. Shelby Farms, you can also rent different areas to have picnics or parties. There's a restaurant that then overlooks one of the lakes. Now, when I say lakes, they're not like lakes that are in Dallas or anything like that. They're smaller lakes, but it's still a great water view. And
Yeah, exactly.
horseback riding, they've recently did a zip line. So we've got, that's just one facet. Of course, we sit on the river, so the Mississippi River. They just recently put in just this beautiful park down there that again has a walking path, but then you can stop and they have putt-putt and they have a children's playground and you can do lots of activities that you can rent down there. So a lot of outdoor activities that maybe people don't necessarily think about Memphis has an abundance of.
Well, it sounds like Memphis has developed a lot in the past 20, 25 years for sure.
Yeah,
So let's talk just a little bit about the market. So, what is the real estate market like right now in Memphis? And I know there are different areas, but let's just kind of focus on Memphis in general.
absolutely. For sure. So, we're not a super affluent town. So our average price point, people might go, what? We can buy a shack there. So, our median price is a little over 200,000. Again, like you said, like with many towns, can we go much higher than that in other areas? For sure. But you can get a pretty good looking home for, a little bit over 200. Um, we're not exactly, like some of the other markets we're seeing where it's really had a lot of price decreases over the past few months. We're kind of a balanced market. To give you an example, we on average have about 1,100 units that close a month. And our inventory has definitely been seeing that increase. We're about 700 to 800 units above year over year. So we're tracking about, I think my numbers were about closing about 1,100 and we have about 4,000 on the market. So kind of hitting that balanced market. And so, when our market reports come out, sometimes we have a tendency to get excited that oh, well, we still had, a 1 or 2% price increase year over year. But the rest of the story is there's a lot of houses that are sitting on the market and not getting sold. So we kind of talk about that it's a contest of the best and then the rest. So talking to
Yeah.
our sellers, we're just telling them that, we need to have a really good looking product to put on the market to be one of the 1,100 that sell versus maybe the 2,800 that don't.
Right.
That kind of
Condition and
makes
price. Condition and price.
yes, yeah.
Um, a quick question. So I had heard this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, and it may be in Memphis or maybe in all of Tennessee, but I had heard that, for example, in maybe your area, that they were increasing or maybe even reevaluating the property taxes. Is that right? Because I
That is true.
know, and the reason I know this is because there is someone in Indy who I work with who has purchased an investment home in Indy, but he also has some in Memphis because it's a very popular place I've heard to invest, and I think they're reevaluating the maybe the taxes, and that's good, that's always good, but then that is going to maybe bring more homes to the market. Maybe investors are going to sell and maybe new investors are going to come in. How do you think, do you think that's what's going to happen?
It's true. And if you don't live here, you may not really understand what the property reassessment is.
Hmm.
So it is true. The various, we call them municipalities, cities are reassessing the properties, and that's what decides property taxes. Tennessee does not have a state income tax, so that's a good thing. And yet, we get, have our property taxes. So they are reevaluating them because they do that every 2 years, and in some areas every 4 years. So they kind of lag behind the actual values. So it is quite shocking if your home has not been valued in the last 4 years by the local governments for you to all of a sudden go, oh my goodness, I went from 200,000 to 400,000. And the reality is you really did because it's that far behind. So that's quite shocking initially. But
Hmm.
what's written into the legislature is the taxing authorities can't automatically get a windfall from their taxes. So then what
Hmm.
they have to do, and I'm not trying to make this complicated, they have to back down their tax rate because they can't make a windfall from property values increasing exponentially. So it will balance back out. Do we expect to see an increase? Yes. I just don't think it will be as high as people initially were thinking because of such a big jump in their home values by the assessor's office.
Okay, that makes more sense. So we obviously
Yeah,
know that
try not to
people,
make it sound too complicated.
yeah. Well, and we do have state income tax here, but our property taxes in general, in my opinion, are pretty low. Our average price point in Indianapolis is 250, so it's very similar. Our property taxes are about at 1% if you have a homestead. So
Yeah, and we do not
yeah.
have homestead exempt in Tennessee.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, hey,
Yeah,
we
there's
learned
pros
something
and
new.
cons of no.
Yeah. So obviously investors like to invest in Memphis. There's lots of different things going on there. Like people go there on vacation. So I'm sure investors are wanting to purchase homes to turn them into Airbnbs or even midterm rentals because you have hospitals, you have universities and things like that. What about okay, so there's a large portion of the population that's getting ready to retire or has retired or is thinking about maybe a second home or where they want to move next. Do you feel like Memphis has started developing a lot more of those 55 and older communities, or what, or that they're all over here all of a sudden? It's like they're popping up everywhere.
So unfortunately, no. Yeah,
Mm.
that's some of the biggest complaints is that we do not have an abundance of one-story homes.
Mm.
There have been some builders that have built in some of our towns, suburbs, but they're not cheap. And so sometimes the empty nesters are like, well, I didn't really want to spend that much. And when I say not cheap, they might be 500s and up. And
Sure.
they're just like, yeah, I wasn't expecting to spend that. So, for an example, we're empty nesters and we just had to buy a bigger house because we did want kind of all one level just to kind of, that was what we wanted. They are few and far between. So
Mhm.
we do not have an abundance of builders starting to build 55 plus communities,
Well, and
unfortunately.
I think that's going to be hard for every city, not just Memphis, of course, but that's going to be hard for every city because right now, a huge majority of the population wants a ranch home. They're downsizing, just like you said. You guys luckily found something, but I think that in the future we're going to have to think of creative ways, or we're going to have to start having those new build communities like here where it's 55 plus, they have all the amenities, because yeah, if we didn't have those communities right now, it would be tough. Ranches go pretty quickly. Now, here, another question. So, when you see people moving to Memphis, what areas of the country do you see them moving from? Because you have a lot of different industries. So, where do you see people coming from?
I have not been able to pinpoint exactly. Used to, we would get a lot, and I'm not saying we don't still, we would get a lot from Louisiana, Chicago, Dallas. We would get a lot of that transition back and forth. It seemed like we were a corridor, Louisiana, Georgia, Memphis, Chicago, and back down to Dallas. And that still occurs. During COVID, we got a lot from California, and it didn't matter the industry. We just got a lot from California. Um, we do still have, although it's very small, we do still have a lot of military transplants. So just have a military family moving here from Gulfport just next week, because we do have a base here. So we have, some military that come in. We do have a very robust, dynamic medical field. We have St. Jude, we have Le Bonheur, we have UT Health Science Center. So we do have some doctors that move here as well, and they might be from all across the country coming to work at one of our hospitals. I personally just have not been able to go, oh, we get most of them from this area. We seem to get them from all over.
Which is awesome. Yeah, St. Jude.
Yes.
I'm assuming you have lots of traveling nurses and things like that. And there's always a need for midterm rentals, short-term rentals, those type of things. Especially because isn't St. Jude closer to downtown, I guess? I don't
Yes.
know. Is yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have a lot of condos downtown. And unfortunately, a few years ago, a lot of the condo associations, the homeowner condo associations, actually wrote into their bylaws that they couldn't do short-term rentals. So that put out a lot of investors being able to buy in the condos because those are the closest. They're downtown. They're in that whole, that action that people like to live downtown. So it did have to start moving them out to buying more single family homes.
It's funny because I see that as both a good and a bad thing. Of course, good for
Right.
maybe the people who are living there, but it limits the number of opportunities, I guess, for investors or people who want to come,
Right. Yes.
do that.
For sure.
So the industries you said you have medical. I also know that FedEx is obviously a huge company there. And it's the world headquarters, I believe. And
Right.
so they're actually because we have a hub here in Indy as well, not a headquarters, but I've known
Right.
people to go down there from Indy, and I'm trying to think. I don't remember what other cities, but I know that's a big industry as well. So if
Yes,
someone was
that's a big one. I
wanting,
pass by Fred Smith's house often. Yeah. The owner creator of FedEx does not live in as big a house as you would think. Yeah.
oh, I always wondered.
No,
I
it's
always,
really
I always think about um where people live. And I will tell you, I'm just being honest. Um, there's creators on TikTok or Instagram. I can't remember which one, but I've watched a lot of their videos. They live in Memphis, like So, and it's so crazy because it's like this amazing, fabulous lifestyle. And I'm like, oh, it looks so awesome. Like, they're in certain areas, I guess. But I was gonna ask you, what neighborhoods or what areas are the hottest parts of Memphis right now that you would say?
Um, you hate it when you give an answer. It depends. No different than some other areas. So we are really driven a lot by schools.
Mm.
So unfortunately, Memphis proper is not known for schools. So if you're wanting to put your kid in public school, you're going to buy in one of the suburbs because they all have their own school systems and are very highly rated and everybody loves them. Um, so right now, because we have slowed down a little bit, I wouldn't say that we have like, oh, everybody's dying to get into this neighborhood. There are absolutely, because we're moving into that selling season, people wanting to get into those neighborhoods, the Germantown, the Collierville, the Arlington, the Bartlett for schools. So
Mm.
we'll see those areas they're actually more active right now than maybe the center of Memphis. We have some areas, perfect example, Central Gardens. It's a beautiful neighborhood, older homes. And when I say older, these are 1910, 19 to
Mm.
1940, 50. They're just spectacular. They're not for everybody because they're not always going to have the high ceilings or the updated bathrooms that you might be looking for. But if you like that vintage character, no cookie cutter homes. They're just stunning. We have a lot of craftsman style home. I learned this when I moved to Memphis. We did not have these in Dallas. You literally bought your house from the Sears catalog and you
Yes.
brought it in, you built it, and then you added on that porch. Or, it's just fascinating some of the history and how the houses were built that we currently have. So we have Central Gardens, we have an area called High Point. Just those are great, like young couples, first time home buyers, even singles, because they're very walkable neighborhoods. So they'll have a neighborhood pub and lots of local restaurants. We're known for barbecue, but we're also known for just a lot of great food. We have a lot of locally owned restaurants that are just spectacular. So you're never bored when you're looking for what to eat. And, we've had great weather right now. So lots of patio dining, just a great, robust foodie environment.
I love that because in the Midwest, our number one activity is eating. So, um,
Yeah.
I love that so much. Okay, well, I'm going to ask you a final question. So, say someone wants to move to Memphis and they're looking to either, retire or invest or just move there to have a new life. What advice would you give them when they try to figure out where they want to live in the city?
Yeah, because that's a challenge when you're moving to a new city. So the conversation that I have with clients that I'm working with like that is I really need to help understand their lifestyle. Like I know you said empty nesters, so then we're not talking about are schools important, but how close do you want to be to hospitals? There's we have an area, it's in one of our other counties that it was a good 20 to 25 minutes to get to a hospital. So if you had elderly parents that lived with you, the conversation I had with them literally would be to budget in care flight, which meant it's our ambulance service that's a helicopter because it's going to be a little bit to get you to a hospital. So that's an extreme, but it's conversations like that. Like, are you outdoor people? Do you want to be close to downtown? Do you like a newer home? Do you like an older home with character? Because you're not going to find a newer home in some of our parts of Memphis, like the High Point or the Central Gardens, because they don't make new homes there. You're buying that 1940 bungalow.
Right.
Kind of
Okay.
what's their lifestyle. And then we'll have a conversation about, okay, well, that would be these particular areas and what's your home character style that you seem to really love and would just be so excited to walk into the front door to. Then we're going to talk about where those homes might be.
Those are some great questions to ask. Really, it depends, like you said, on lifestyle. Okay, I know I said that
Yeah.
was the last question. I know I said it, but one more. what's the best barbecue in Memphis? I don't listen, one restaurant.
I know. So for me, I'm a Central Barbecue fan. I love Central Barbecue. That's literally the name of it. It's Central Barbecue. That's my favorite.
Okay. Final
And they're
answer.
all very close. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. I believe it. Listen, next time I go, that's where I'm going. This has been so nice to learn more about Memphis and kind of just to talk about the growth and development in Memphis and just to learn more about you. So, anyone who's watching, if you're thinking about Memphis in any way, investing, retiring, just moving to a different part of the country, Suzanne is the expert. She can tell you what to do and guide you in that direction. Contact me and I'll give you her information. But Suzanne, thank you so much. You've been awesome.
Yes, it was great to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jennifer. Bye-bye.